All right, appreciate everybody being here. It was a hard-fought game in the second half for our players and showed a lot of resiliency, and congratulations to Michigan on the victory. And that's what rivalry games are supposed to look like down to the end, and got to give them a lot of credit. They made a lot more plays than we did in the first half. It was a tale of two halves. Unfortunately, we've had, two of those games where it's been a tale of two halves. We haven't played 60 total minutes of really elite football yet, which gives us hope and excitement as we keep going forward. And I said this before. I said you have to be, I think, really good at losing to continue to find ways to win. And I'm not accepting losing. What I'm saying that is you have to understand when you do lose, you're going to learn the most. And our players, I can't give them enough credit for how hard they played in the second half, the resiliency they showed, because that's going to stay with them through life. That's going to stay through them as husbands and fathers and adults, leaders of their family, when they go through really, really dark and tragic and hard times. I mean, that showed what type of character those guys have, and they've always done that. And that's what I admired about them. I told them after the game how proud of them I was, and our staff, how proud of the staff I was. But I also told them yesterday, I said, now listen, you take that moment and you capture that moment in the locker room, and then you move on to Sunday to learn. And I said, sometimes when you get to that point, we're over moral victories. I think you can all understand that about me, that there are no moral victories. And when you are getting told, like, man, that was such a great fight. Oh, that was so amazing from the external, right? Which is fine. You can have that in the moment. But then after that can be just as much rat poisoning as winning that game, and being patted on the back. Great job. We needed to be able to learn from Saturday, yesterday, and be able to move on. And I thought our guys did an unbelievable job of that. I think they've handled everything with class and played their hearts out, and I couldn't be more proud of them for that. At the end of the day, winning's the objective, and we didn't do that. Simple. And it took 60-some plays on both sides of the ball to get to that last play. So every play tells its own story, as I said in the press conference after the game. Not one play will ever lose you a game, but I do believe that one play can win you a game. But it's not just one play. So, I mean, you've got all. That's why every play tells its own individual story. So we've got to be better in those things. We did not win 78%, and that's the story of the game. We were -1 in the takeaway battle. We didn't win the tackling, or -1 in the turnover battle. Didn't win the tackling battle, and the explosive plays were pretty close in the run and pass. We had a fumble that turned into 7 points for them. We had a block punt, which turned in for 7 points for them. We had a missed field goal. Now, they had some errors too. You listen to Coach Moore, and he's talking about how bad they played, right? I mean, so there's two sides of that. You look at the Georgia-Alabama game. Georgia's down 30-7 at halftime. Who would have thought that? Like, it's college football. Jim Tressel told me a long time ago, as I said, why do you coach college football? He goes, you never know what's going to happen. And that's exactly the way he said it and walked away. And the ball's not round. It's, so we did some unbelievable things in that game. In the return game with Coy Parrish, had an unbelievable punt return and shows how explosive he can be. We executed a bonsai perfectly at the very end of the first half, and that's exactly how that drive should have been and ended. You don't have enough time to technically get that snap off. You can't clock it because it's under 3 seconds. And we practiced that play once a day, every day for the last 12 years, and I've used it twice. That's situational football. When you look at situational football, T2, end of half, end of game, bonsai situations, I think our team's been really strong in situational football, of things that might be overlooked, but they've done an unbelievable job of winning a lot of the situational football. Other than that, right? So not exactly, pleased with obviously the outcome of the game in terms of win-loss, but I think our team showed what they're made of and showed how much fun this is going to be the next 7 games. And that's what it's all about. You give yourself a best chance to win. Now, we got to put 60 minutes of football together, and that is my job. The head football coach's job is to make sure your team plays the best from the kickoff till the final buzzer. That's my job, and I'm solely responsible for that. And it's my job to get it fixed and my job to get the most out of these players. So with that said, leave it up for questions.
PJ, when you're looking at 60 minutes of football, what are you looking for specifically in the run game offensively?
Just execution. It's one guy here, it's one guy there. It's a hold here or a false start there. It's behind the chains. It's a finishing of a block. It's communication up front. But, we're going to be really good at running the football. We can be really good at running the football. We are really good at running the football. But we can't force ourselves, Andy. It's a great question because we're forcing ourselves to get away from it sooner than we want to get away from it. You're forcing ourselves, whether that's by turning the ball over, giving up scores on defense, getting away from our game plan because of, drives that are going against us on defense. On the offensive side, we're dropping a ball, putting ourselves in a tough position. We can't just say, okay, we're going to establish a run and just do it and then go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Why would I do that? Right? I mean, so we have to listen to what we're good at now, and then watch practice of what we're getting better at, and then go get better at it, and then go execute it better in a game. And that's what's fun about being able to go through the season, because you want to get better. Your team should get better. And I'm watching us get better at a lot of things. But again, we're making too many small, in terms of play numbers, catastrophic when you look at the game.
PJ, the false start issues we had, concentration, is that the main thing with those?
I think it's two things, Randy. I think it's a really good point. I think we were really disciplined in a lot of ways that people look at a false start and they're all undisciplined. We did a lot of things in that game where we had to be able to switch snap counts up, move snap counts up, especially on short yardage stuff of what we were going to do, whether it was fake claps, multiple claps, whether it was under center and it was, freeze cadence. And they did a really good job of that. But it's a flinch here or a flinch there. How we're getting to that, got to give Michigan's fans a lot of credit. We had too many. And again, I think when you look at the amount of penalties we have, we're used to being the least penalized team in the country. So when you start comparing yourself to yourself, anything below number one in the country, it's disappointing because that's how we play football. Now there's people that have 17, 16 penalties a game. Like we're not undisciplined. We're just making some mistakes in some critical situations. And we got to be better at that and be more disciplined just within those situations. And I think some of them are really, really close. There's been times where I thought, okay, they were in the neutral zone first and we moved and we got called for a false start. But, there's things like that come up and you got to really analyze that, look at it, and move on.
What do you think about the third quarter against Iowa or the second quarter against Michigan? How do you stop the bleeding sooner so you don't spend the rest of the game trying to dig out of it?
Yeah, Ryan, that's a great question. And if I had the exact answer for that, I would have stopped the bleeding of the first artery that was pouring open, because those are the things that make it bleed out quick. And now the whole game plan changes. And I'm using an analogy, right? Because you started with the blood analogy, so I just went from there. I don't want to make sure everybody thinks it's like that. So it comes down to why. And remember, Sundays, whether we win or lose, it comes down to why did that happen? Every play. Our job as coaches is to critique every single play and look for ways for us to improve that particular call, play, situation. And we have to be able to tackle better. There's times we have people in there that we're tackling, we're thudding them up, but they break a tackle. We slide off them. We shoot our shot too low. We duck our heads. We're not swarming to the ball. We get our eyes somewhere else, and we're a half step too late to the gap. And the people that we're playing, remember, we're playing some really good running football teams, and they gap you out. And when they gap you out, which we like to do too, you better be right. And if you're not right and you're a half a step too slow or you break a tackle, that can lead to huge plays. And we're not playing, me at running back. We've played some of the best running backs in the entire country over the last few weeks. And but again, this is where we have to be. I'm going to give you the analogy of like you're in the batter's box and you got the donut on the baseball bat. You got multiple donuts on the baseball bat. But when you get ready to go in the batter's circle, right? You go up to the plate, batter's box. You knock the donuts off and your bat should be lighter. We're just leaving some donuts on the bat while we're at the plate. Get all the donuts off in the batter's circle before you get to the batter's box. Get them all off. We're making it a little harder on ourselves. And a lot of things we're doing are just self-inflicted. Eyes in the wrong spot, not being able to run our feet through the tackle. Almost we're tackling to the man, not through the man. And those come down to us executing our fundamentals way better, which come down to me as a head football coach and getting that coached and getting that done better.
PJ, you look at film of Miller Moss, what stands out to you?
Everything. I mean, he's a gunslinger. I mean, he can throw it around. It's one thing to be a gunslinger. It's another thing to be a gunslinger that's accurate. He's throwing for over 70% completion percentage, and it's not just on screens. And I mean, he's throwing through windows that are about that big. He's agile. He can move. He can run. You can tell that he is a football player first and a quarterback second, because he loves the game and he makes everybody else around him better. Now, they got 4 to 5 receivers that they're all big. They can all create space. They can all run, flat out fly. Their offensive line is probably the biggest we've played all year. And they run the football. I mean, they run the football with, they're running multiple running backs, a lot of counter, a lot of pullers, and they're big and physical. And I think one thing Lincoln's really done a great job of as he's gone through his career is he's running the ball more effectively than he ever has. And he's not running it just to break the throwing streaks. He's running it with effectiveness to run the football. And it's been, I've studied him for a lot of years, just watching what he's done at Oklahoma and USC. And he's I think part of that generation that's kind of reinvented the game of his offensive mind and what he's been able to do. I have a ton of respect for him. And you can tell by how hard his guys play on offense. And on defense, they've got a lot of things that have a lot of similarities to the team we just played. Their coordinator comes a little bit from the wink tree, and, they do a lot of similarities. They're different, but they're an aggressive style of defense, and they've got corners that are all 6'2", 6'3", long. They got a linebacker at 6'6". They got a really stout up front defensive line. And you look at that Michigan game, I mean, they're one play away from winning that game, and it's the last final seconds of, basically a 1-yard run. And so, I mean, they're a really good football team. I mean, they're a highly ranked team. This is our, second straight week of playing a top 12 team. And that's the fun thing about the new Big Ten.
How important would it be to start out early? Only 9 points so far in the season in the first quarter. None of those coming against the 3 Power 4 opponents. Just how important is it to start against the ranked opponent like USC early?
Yeah, I don't care who it's against. We talk about starting fast, accelerate in the middle, win the middle 8, and then finish strong, period. I mean, that is our standard. And we know it too. I think you all have the stats and you all have the percentages, and that's part of your job is to find that what we're not doing well, and I can appreciate that because we're not doing it well. The key is execution, period. It sounds generic, it sounds boring, but it's true. We have a drop here, we have a missed protection here, we have an early fumble, we have something that gets us off our row, our rhythm, right? And I don't believe in momentum. And I think that we've allowed momentum to creep in here and there and rely on that. And I told our players that yesterday. I said, that's why we don't believe in it. We're dictating our own tempo of what we want to execute on offense. And we've got to start way faster. We got to start even faster on defense. So, we're down 21-0 before we know it. That changes so many things when you're playing a top 12 team, guys. And it's self-inflicted. However, I know we have a block punt and a fumble, but our defense, we talk about as a team, I don't care. We play defense for 100 yards, 120 yards, 53 and a third, the width of the field, period. It doesn't matter where they get the ball. We got to hold them to field goals. And, I think our defense takes a lot of pride in that. And unfortunately, they got 14 points where it could have been possibly 6. Even when it went really wrong, we still could have been able to stop the bleeding, and we weren't able to do that.
What did you see after watching that onside kickback on tape?
Yeah, okay, so here's what I'll say about that. I had a conversation with the Big Ten commissioner and the officials. We know they are reviewing it, and we expect to hear something this afternoon. So that's all I'll say about the last play.
PJ, how do you look at going to tempo when the game script doesn't call for it? Obviously, you talk about kind of not wanting to go 3 and out and give the ball right back to him, but it feels like Max might be comfortable in that situation.
Well, we've done it. We've done a part of our game plan. It's never been just a reaction. We've done it in the first half. We've done it in the second quarter. We've done it in the fourth quarter. We've done it in 2-minute drill. Andy, we have a lot of tempos, right? And we can go at a 2-minute rate, which is very different, right, than a 4-minute rate, right? There's a 2-minute rate, then there's a kind of a NASCAR rate, right, pace, and then there's an Indy car pace. Like, we have all these paces that we can go at based on the flow of the game. We've gotten to it early, we've done it early, and then we haven't had success. We've done it early and had success. But the whole point is to mix it in and out strategically for us to have an advantage. It's not meant to be just a reaction. Start of the second half, we're not in 2 minutes, but we had to be able to speed the tempo up because we're down 18 points. We're down 3 scores. We had to move it at a little bit faster rate. But it wasn't the rate. It was the execution. The flow, the pace of the game. If we thought that our team was the best team in hurry up, we'd just hurry up the whole time. If we thought that was the best thing to do, we would do that. We believe that it's to sprinkle it. Now, do we sprinkle it a little more? Do we sprinkle it a little less? I think those are the questions you have to ask, but it's more of the execution, because when we aren't going at that type of pace, we're playing really good football too, but then we're also playing really bad football. When we do go at that rate, there's times we're doing really well. And then there's times with 13 seconds off the clock, we just ran 3 plays, and now we punt right back, and our defense is back on the field. So it's all game plan. It's all based on you want it to be more response with your own team than reaction to the other team. And right now it feels like we're not able to do it in terms of on our own control, but we're able to do it when we have to react. And that's the execution piece that we got to get fixed.
What's the message? What's the message to Dragon currently?
Yeah, keep rowing, man. Baseball terms, keep swinging. Right? Chopping a tree down, keep chopping. In football, in kicking terms, keep kicking it. Just do it better. That's it. That's the message. I believe in him 100%. Guys, most of his field goals are outside 50 yards. That's how much I trust him. And, you know, I make a joke like 55 yards that's a tough field goal for anybody. But he can make it, or I wouldn't put him out there. I watch him every day in practice. And this is just like I go back to Major League Baseball. Some of us love baseball. Right? I think Aaron Judge was getting booed at the beginning of the year. Am I right? Like there was the first month of baseball. Wasn't Aaron Judge having a hard time? Okay, yes. Okay, there we go. We got a yes out of the crowd. Because I was hoping I was really right because my brain remembered that, right? But now he's close to 60 home runs. The Yankees are doing pretty good. Like great players, that doesn't mean that they're not going to go through their own struggles. And I believe in him wholeheartedly, and I'm going to continue to believe in him. And I'm going to continue to do that. And that's my faith and belief in my team. And I'll always do that because I see what he does on a daily basis. And you've all seen what he can do. He'll get it right. I know he'll get it right.
What do you feel like were the keys to the special teams in Coy's return, especially?
I think it's just the way how hard our guys are playing. I think when you see some of the things, excuse me, that we're doing on the special teams part, some of them are really hustle mistakes. I mean, some of the things that we're doing are hustle mistakes. And, you know, I love how hard those guys play. And I think we're playing as hard, if not harder than we ever have. And Coy's, I've told you this before, Coy's bigger than you think. I mean, you can look at his height and weight, but he's got a great instinct for football, just in general. He's always smiling. He's got that Antoine smile and that love for the game. You can put him out there as a true freshman. Nothing intimidates him. And he's dangerous with the ball in his hand. So that's the best way we can find to do and not put too much on his plate as a true freshman right now. He's playing defense. He's playing special teams. He just got here in June. And when you actually go up to him and you kind of hit him on the shoulder, he's very, very dense. I mean, he is incredibly strong, and he hasn't been through our program for a whole year yet. And I think he can break tackles. He sees the field really well. Everybody's blocking their tail off for him. If you give him a little bit of space, I think he can be really dangerous. And I watched him do it all through high school. I mean, multiple games. One of them I was at personally, and I think he had 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. I mean, he's running right by me, rowing the boat, and talking to me on, you know, as he's talking to me as he's running by. He loves the game, and that's the joy that he plays with. But when you get around his mom and dad, like you can see where that comes from. And they just have, they let their boys just like live life as boys, you know, and it's fun and refreshing, and they do a really good job of raising their kids. And Coy's he's a phenomenal football player. So, but it's all 11 because they're all working their tail end off to give him a crease. And again, punt return's all about levels. You know, if you got one wall coming down to tackle you, it's hard to be able to make that. Our guys are disrupting the punt team at different levels, which are allowing creases, which are allowing him to be able to break a tackle, see the field a little bit better, get up the field, make the first guy miss, and then you can see what he does with the ball in his hand. So, you know, as we move forward, you know, he's a guy that's going to be really, really dynamic for us in every aspect of the game. You got it. Thanks, everybody. Roll the boat, Sky Mago Gophers.